Good afternoon. The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 19481 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau setting out a business programme. I call on Martin Whitfield to move the motion.
Moved.
I call Douglas Ross.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. As members know, this is an opportunity for MSPs to seek additions to the business motion going forward. And I rise today to ask for a statement for the Parliament from the Minister for Parliamentary Business about how we as MSPs can get answers from the Scottish Parliament corporate body. They are once again in the news because of the shameful conduct we have seen between Police Scotland and a protest they were looking after outside this Parliament, where Susan Smith of For Women Scotland has now been called to a police station to consider accepting a penalty notice from the police for the apparent heinous crime of touching someone's umbrella, which, from the footage I've seen, looks like it was already broken before she even touched it. It is frankly ridiculous, and I do think we need to question the corporate body about this. Now, Tess White put a question to the First Minister today. I think she got a very disappointing response from him. I tried to put forward an urgent question to the Scottish Parliamentary Corporate Body today, and that was rejected by the presiding officer, and I can't question why, because she doesn't give her reasons. I therefore thought the best option was to seek a statement from the Scottish Parliament Corporate Body next week to allow us, as MSPs, to question them about the discussions they've had with Police Scotland, about the protest back in September, and about the fact that one of our constituents here in Scotland has now been taken through the criminal process by Police Scotland for, as I say, touching someone's umbrella. However, I believe, if I've read standing orders correct, there is no mechanism to seek a statement from the Scottish Parliament corporate body. And I think that is something that should change. And perhaps it's just luck and good fortune on my part that I'm putting this to the convener of the Standards Public Procedure Committee in his role as a member of the Bureau. So I wonder if Mr Whitfield could consider, in moving this motion for the Minister for Parliamentary Business, for the Minister to come to Parliament next week to suggest options for MSPs to be able to get members of the corporate body to provide a statement on this issue to allow us to question them, because corporate body questions will now not take place until, I believe, the 27th of November, so it's a long time away, and there are serious questions about the policing of that event back in September, the issues that have arisen over the last couple of days with Susan Smith and the penalties she may be facing from Police Scotland, and now the very welcome backtracking by Police Scotland. But if the corporate body are the ones who can discuss this with the police in their role as the corporate body of this Parliament, they should then be accountable to this chamber, and hopefully we can get answers as to, one, how that was originally policed back in September, when one disruptive individual went above and beyond to try and destroy the efforts of two legitimate protests being held that day, the subsequent police actions, and answers from the very top. Because what has happened to Susan Smith did not get signed off by someone low down the chain in Police Scotland. That clearly went far higher, and we need to know how that was allowed to happen, why it happened, and what is going to be done to make sure that never happens again. And, Presiding Officer, I remind the Chamber of my register of interest that my wife is a serving officer with Police Scotland.
Thank you, Mr Ross. I call on Martin Whitfield to respond on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau. Mr Whitfield.
I'm grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer, and it is as a representative of the Bureau that I will respond to this rather than perhaps other hats that I own. But of course, all committees are open to receiving correspondence. And if it is in relation to standing orders and the provision, then it would be the right committee to come to. And on this point, can I thank the member for his contribution in respect of the business motion, because he has highlighted a challenging area, and that is the relationship between the Chamber and the corporate body. And certainly he's put on public record his views, and I know that consideration of that will be taken forward in the various areas that should rightly consider what he's raised today. And with that, I would move the motion.
Thank you, Mr Whitfield. So I put the question, and the question is that motion 19481 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The Parliament is agreed. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is consideration of Business Motion 19442 in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau on a timetabling extension at stage 1. I would invite any member who wishes to speak to the motion to press the request to speak button now. And I call on Martin Whitfield to move the motion.
Moved.
Thank you. I note that no member has asked to speak to the motion. Therefore, the question is that motion 19442 be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The Parliament is agreed. The motion is therefore agreed. The next item of business is consideration of 9 Parliamentary Bureau motions. I ask Martin Whitfield, on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau, to move motions 19443 to 19450 on approval of SSIs and on motion 19451 on suspension of standing orders.
Apologies.
Thank you, Mr Whitfield. You're ahead of me. And I call on Graham Simpson. Mr Simpson.
Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. I just want to speak briefly to 3 of the SSIs being moved today. They are 19444, 19446, 19447. These regulations have been laid as a result of amendments tabled by myself, working with the government on ending the practice where MSPs can also be MPs, peers or councillors. And there was unanimous backing for those amendments. I worked very closely with the government on them. And that's what's led to the tabling of these regulations today. My position is that being an MSP is a full-time job and that you should not be juggling that with being an MP or being in the Lords, or indeed, after a period of time, being a councillor. Now, the regulations on MPs and Lords set a short period of time after which those roles elsewhere should end. The regulation relating to councillors sets a longer period of time, and the reason for that is that we don't want a whole raft of by-elections after a Scottish Parliament election, because in every Scottish Parliament election there are a number of members of this place who have also been councillors. So, having said that, I think these regulations are extremely sensible. Yes, I'll certainly take an intervention.
Briefly, Ms Webber.
Thank you. Mr Simpson, I was wondering if you could comment on some of these SSIs that make it clear that councillors should now be giving up their allowances when they are in those dual roles. And I wonder if you could make some reference and comment on your position.
Always through the Chair. Graham Simpson.
Yes, the regulation with respect to councillors says that if you remain as a councillor, then your MSP pay will be deducted by the same amount as your councillor pay, unless you receive extra pay as a councillor. As I say, I'm fully supportive of all 3 of these regulations. I think they're sensible. I think they will have public approval, and I commend them to the Chamber.
Thank you, Mr Simpson. The question on these motions will now be put. I propose to ask a single question on 9 Parliamentary Bureau motions. Does any member object? No member objects. The question is that motions 19443 to 19450 on approval of SSIs and on motion 19451 on suspension of standing orders in the name of Graham Day on behalf of the Parliamentary Bureau be agreed. Are we all agreed? Yes. The Parliament is agreed. The motions are therefore agreed.